Today, I'd like to show you how I transformed this image and created this final edit. I am Elodie, a wildlife photography instructor from Montreal, Canada. I specialize in wildlife, of course, but also creative photography and creative techniques. I have several photography courses online on different themes, and I often share tips and freebies. You can go on my Instagram to see more. The hummingbirds have just come back to Canada for summer, and this little female ruby-throated hummingbird arrived, and I've been waiting for her for some days, and she started feeding on some flowers here. I had my camera with me, and you can see here's a setting. My ISO was 2000 because it was starting to be quite dark. My lens is a 600mm focal, and I was here at the maximum 600mm. My aperture was 6.3, which is also the widest that I can have on this lens. And you can see that my shutter speed was a bit on the slower side for hummingbirds, but I love doing that because I have the wings of the hummingbird that are a bit blurry. When they're feeding, usually they have their body standing still and their wings moving quite fast. So it's quite cool to have this effect where the hummingbird is sharp with my slower shutter speed, but the wings are blurry. So I brought the image into Lightroom and I'm starting with my usual edits. You can see here that the histogram is quite in the middle, so I don't have to do much. I'm just going to add some clarity, a bit of vibrancy, a bit of dehazing. You can see that my histogram becomes a bit more on the shadow side, but I don't mind that because I prefer to have usually a darker background to work with, and I'm going to lighten up my subject later. And also here, I know I want to do multiple exposures to soften the background and play with the colors. So I know I need a darker background because it's going to work better with double or triple exposures. If you know me, you know that I like desaturated greens, and this is too much neon for me. But I'm not going to change that in Lightroom because I don't want to change the whole image. Here, if I desaturate the greens, I'm going to have also the hummingbird desaturated, and I don't want that. So I'm going to do the desaturation part in Photoshop later for this image. Now I'm going into the detail panel and I'm going to have the details on the sharp edges of the hummingbird. If you want to know more about each technique or which step that I'm using, I'm detailing all of that in my courses. But here I'm just going quite fast, so just to show you the whole process. I'm going to bring my image into Photoshop. I'm going to duplicate the background and use a high-pass filter that I'm going to put on a harsh light. And I'm going to use a mask to apply the high-pass filter only on the hummingbird. And you can see that it's going to bring up the details on this little lady. Now I want to bring even more details to the eye. So I'm going to repeat the same process and put again a filter on the eye of the hummingbird, but I'm also going to reduce the opacity of this layer because I want to keep it natural. Now I'm going to flatten the image and duplicate again to work on my greens. So this is a part where I'm going to desaturate the greens and play with the tint, saturation, and luminescence to achieve the green that I want. I'm going to use a mask again on this layer to have the change everywhere except on the hummingbird. And I'm going to paint out the hummingbird with the black brush on the mask. Now I'm going to bring back the image into Lightroom because I want to see what I can do for the size of the image. I could also do that in Photoshop, but it's just that I like to do that in Lightroom. I feel like it's quicker for this part. I know it's not the final size of the image that I'm playing with now, but I'm just not sure if I'm going to edit it vertically or horizontally, or if I'm going to use another ratio. So I'm just playing around a little bit to see what looks best in Lightroom. I think I'm going to edit this image in horizontal mode with the ratio directly from the camera, so not an Instagram ratio. And also I keep in mind that my hummingbird is not taking the whole space in my image. So I know that I could later go back and reframe that to have a more close-up or a vertically image that I could use because I still have a little bit of space around the hummingbird. I know it has potential for the next steps. So I want to soften this image. I want to soften the background. I know I want to turn this image into a more creative edit and use a double or triple exposure. So I'm gonna see what I can do here. I pulled out some other images that I have for the same hummingbird taken either the previous day or the same day, because I like the background on them. You see, I like the bouquet, which is really cool. I like the colors, and I think I'm gonna use these and bring them into Photoshop. And what I'm going to do is just use the eraser tool and erase the hummingbird. And Photoshop is doing a great job here. I'm just going to duplicate the background and do a Gaussian blur on it to make it smoother and erase the line here. So I'm going to bring my background into my main image. I really like this. I really like the purple spots here and the bokeh and the sparkles here. So I'm going to play and to see what mode I really prefer. I'm not going to show you here the whole part because I spent quite a bit of time trying to see how I could use the masking and unmasking. But I'm going to show you the end image. I'm just going to jump to the next steps because I like the way it looks with my first additional layer with the background. I'm going to add another background here that I like. So I'm going to do exactly the same process, the same technique, taking out the hummingbird with the eraser tool and using Gaussian blur to make everything look natural. And here on this one, I do like desaturated greens, so I'm just going to use filter camera raw to desaturate the greens to my liking, and I'm going to play with the mode. I could use a mask, and I'm just going to try to see what the best mask would be and to make this look natural and blending all fine. I'm just going to speed that up because I played around quite a little bit to find just the perfect combination, and I'm quite the perfectionist here, so it took a bit of time to get there, but I got there. And you can see here the final masking that I did. So with the two layer here, I'm going to go back into Lightroom, saving it. Back into Photoshop, I like to add a bit of magic and sparkle. We do find these sparkles naturally in nature. For example, when it's been raining and there are some droplets in the background. And that day it hasn't been raining, so but I still want to have this feeling. And I'm going to add this layer with a sparkle here in superposition mode, and I'm going to tweak it until I like the size of the sparkles. And I'm going to use a mask on my main subject because I don't want any sparkle on the hummingbird. I want this to look natural, so I want to keep the sparkles in the background. Okay, now I'm going to add an additional directional light filter. It's the same filter that I use basically on all my images, and it's something that I'm talking about into my guide, how to find your own photography voice, because I'm using the same process again and again to edit my images, so my images are coherent and cohesive, and it's kind of a trademark for my images. So I'm going to play with that, and I'm going to use a mask so the hummingbird isn't affected by this layer. I also want a strong image, so I really want a strong directional light, and I'm going to double that and use some masking to remove the light, which is a bit harsh, I think, on the left side corner here. I'm going to save this into Lightroom. I add some contrast, especially for multiple exposure because it makes everything pop a little bit more. And I think I do have my final image here. I'm just going to add a radial brush on the hummingbird to add some exposure and some contrast, maybe some clarity, I'm not sure. And I'm going to also add one on her head to make her head pop. It's also about how to make the eye of the reader going into my image. And I'm always thinking about the eyes of the reader when I create my images. There are some techniques to help you with that are described in my course, but it's an important part of creating an image, I think. So this was the before image and the after, where you can see that we brought some magic and sparkles to this little hummingbird. So if you liked my edits and techniques that I use, and if you want to learn more, as I said at the beginning of the video, I have freebies and free resources on my Instagram bio link where you can learn, and you can also buy one of my courses, which are on more specific themes like creative light and shadows, wildlife photography, hummingbird guide. Also, we talked about how to find your own photography voice, which is very important more for advanced students. I also have a winter photography course, which is very interesting because winter can be quite challenging in terms of photography, and I know about it quite well living in Canada. Don't hesitate to send me a message if you want to learn more or if you have a question. I'm always really happy to help you. Thank you for watching.